Thanks for stopping by my channel. I'm recording Rissa. I'm so excited to show you my makeup tutorial. I'm going to be doing a confessional slash, it's not my story, okay? Just a disclaimer, but I will be doing a voiceover over the makeup video and it's going to be a pretty crazy story. So tune in and you'll see from start to finish how I get such a flawless beat. All right, let's get into this and let's get this makeup story started. Mobile phones became common in my country around 2004, just as I finished high school. My parents bought me my first phone, a secondhand Nokia, and it was bulky and basic, but I promised myself someday I'd buy a new phone with my own money. When college started, I had a 2-hour daily commute. In high school, I had excelled academically and won several district level awards. These awards were being distributed during my first year of college. One nationalized bank finally gave me enough money for a new phone. I bought the Sony Ericsson and a premium SIM card, not realizing it had been abandoned by its previous owner. By the third day, I started receiving calls for a guy named Bissen from various financial institutions. It turned out the number previously belonged to him, and for 20 years I've been getting these calls. Determined to keep my premium number, I began a routine of blocking wrong numbers. Back then, blocking was device specific, so each time I got a new phone, I had to start over, keeping a list of numbers to block. I got my first job after graduating in 2009. Around 2010, I was assigned to a new project with a notorious reputation for burning people out due to a nefarious project manager named Bits. But I wouldn't know his name for quite a while, his full name for quite a while. He took pride in making all of our lives a living hell. Bits ruled with an iron fist. From the moment his team stepped into the office, they were met with a barrage of emails and messages, each more urgent than the last. Bits thrived on creating chaos and often changed project deadlines on a whim, demanding his team work late into the night and on weekends. Bit's presence loomed over every task. He insisted on micromanaging every detail, yet was quick to take credit for any success, no matter how small. Failures, however, were met with his notorious tirades, publicly berating his team and assigning blame without hesitation. His unpredictable temper kept everyone on edge, afraid of making the slightest mistakes. Meetings were another tool in his arsenal of torment. He scheduled them during lunch breaks and after hours, ensuring no one could escape his grasp. These meetings were often pointless, serving only to reinforce his dominance and disrupt any semblance of work life balance his team may have had. His relentless streams of email continued around the clock, carrying a thinly veiled threat: perfection or dismissal. Under his reign, morale plummeted and burnout soared. Yet Bits remained oblivious, satisfied only by his complete and total control. I was quite ashamed when I learned that he was from the same area as I was and had gone to the same school, though years before me. In 2012, our company merged with a parent company. Almost nothing changed personnel wise or infrastructure wise. We got Microsoft Outlook and an organization view. That was the first time I had learned about Bits from an organizational hierarchy perspective. His full name was an eye opener. It was Bitsa. Now, the name is common enough, but at that time, mobile numbers had area specific pattern. So I knew that the previous owner from my number was from the same area as me. Still, it could be someone else. I wanted to dig deeper. So I talked to an old mentor who lived in the same area and coached several high school students for the last 2 decades. He confirmed my suspicions. I won't go into detail, but it was evident that Bitsa and Bits were the same person, and I had been quite pissed with this unknown person named Bitsa for almost a decade by then, and Bits had been the bane of my and several others' existence for quite some time. This is where the revenge lies. First, I unblocked all the numbers in my phone. I was getting 5 to 6 daily calls on average, but after blocking about 150 numbers, it increased to 15 to 18. My answering strategy changed drastically. Instead of saying wrong number, I politely explained that the owner had changed his number and provided his current number to update their database. This is where I could have been, kind of a meanie, but I also volunteered his manager's number just in case he tried something else. The fallout was epic. These people had been trying to find him for almost a decade. Banks had sold his debts to companies that harassed people for a living to get their money back. It turned out he had been taking loans in everyone's name, his wife, parents, uncles, aunts, and giving everyone the same number. He was evading credit card debt and loans up to $200,000, but that's a lot of money. Apparently, he had almost 20 cases filed against him, but no one could find him. Probably why he thought he could walk on water. There are multiple versions of what happened at the office when his manager started to get calls about him. He was let go 2 months later, and I haven't heard from him since. Well, I guess that's to say, please don't mess with me. I informed the banks of his new number and his manager's number, leaving his career in shambles. Haha. I live in Asia and just purchased a new house. Now, the previous owners were family friends who needed cash urgently and haven't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. So I got it for a great price in the middle of the capital city. The sale was finalized at the start of this month, and I moved in right after. The house was definitely a fixer-upper as the previous owners had left mid-renovation and the main door was locked with just a padlock, not even a door lock. The house had no gate, meaning anyone could just walk right on in. The first day I moved in, someone's bike was parked in the garage. I just parked it on the road on the same day I had the gate installed. An angry man was knocking on my gate later, and I didn't bother answering. But through my window, I could see him giving up and taking the bike 15 minutes after. So already, I wasn't digging the neighborhood. But I didn't have any incidents after that, aside from people not knowing that this was no longer an abandoned house. So my gate was blocked more often than never, but a no parking sign fixed that issue. Last week, I was having a shower in my bathroom, and I noticed that my water pressure was lower than usual. I also heard my neighbor's water pump going. Now, this neighbor, an old guy, lived in a 3-story house, the first being the lowest and the one he lived in. The other two were rented out to tenants. This guy wasn't happy about the house being sold and voiced many concerns to my friends with the previous owners. He was super angry about it, and my friends did warn me, but I'm a 6 foot guy with 3 dogs. No way he was going to do anything. And yep, he didn't. So, with this living situation, a water pump is needed to pump water to the tanks on the roof, since the public supplies pressure is not enough to get it up to 3 stories. Now, I heard the water pump going and immediately was suspicious. Sure, coincidences exist, but it wouldn't hurt to check it out. I waited till his pump turned off and then turned on different taps in the house. Sure enough, the pressure went back to normal. This made me even more suspicious. But if he was stealing water, it also made sense. The water bills had been going up over the years this house hadn't been lived in, but the house also had some water leaks, so everyone just thought it was that, even if the bills were too high to be caused by just leaks. It was starting to make sense. At some point in the last 3 years, this old miser thought he'd save the cost of paying for water, and he waltzed into the property and is siphoning water from my lines. I couldn't find exactly where he was siphoning water from, but after checking my pressure multiple times, I was pretty sure. So I sat on it for a few days, thinking if I should confront him, go the legal path, or just let it be. Now, water in my country is very cheap. My total bill, even washing 3 animals, a car every week, and watering my garden, only costs like $5 a month, even with my neighbor also stealing some of it. But I wasn't sure how much I was paying for and who was paying for it. It's about entitled old people thinking that they're deserving of using other people's resources without paying for it, and then getting away with it. I really wanted to teach him a lesson. What I did was really simple. I just turned off my water supply from the mains. I wouldn't have to break into his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. This was the best way of getting it back to him without even needing to lift a muscle. So on Monday, just 4 days ago, I waited till the pump flicked on and turned off the water supply. Now, the way the household tanks work in my country is that there's a ball valve in the tank which detects the level of water and turns on the pump. If the level doesn't increase, the valve stays open, which electronically sends a signal to the pump to stay on until the level gets to a point in which the valve closes and also shuts off the pump. However, the level wasn't increasing, and anyone knows that starving a pump of water isn't a good idea. This way, my expectation was that I'd burn out his pump and cause issues with his tenants. What I didn't account for was that his pump was constantly running and would mess up the fuses by constantly drawing power overnight and would absolutely destroy his wiring. If he decided to upgrade his household wiring to a more modern standard, this would have been prevented. This house clearly had 90s era wiring. At 3 a.m., I heard all the residents in the house were waking up and talking in hushed voices about why their house in the neighborhood doesn't have power or water. I found out about the power part because tenants devolved into shouting at their landlord. Our tenant protection laws are very important, and power and water are classed as essential even on a state level. Cutting off those services are grounds for lawsuits, unless due to weather or some unavoidable reason. In this case, the landlord is responsible for keeping the house wiring up to date and in good condition, along with the supply of water. So the tenants were not happy, and one of them immediately moved out 2 days later when it was informed that the water and power will not be returning the very same day this happened. Both tenants in the two floors lodged a complaint with the police, and if a person is in clear breach of laws, the police have the authority to fine or penalize the person without a court judgment. It can be challenged in court if the person thinks they were unfairly penalized, but they still have to pay the fines and will only be refunded when the court finds the fines unlawful. So now the landlord lost both tenants and has to pay a fine of 500, which is a lot of money in our country. He also has to refund the security deposits of both tenants and cannot rent out until both issues are fixed, which will cost him even more money. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to his daughter's place since he cannot afford to live alone. The tenants were his only source of income, and he's a retired mechanic. He did find out why the motor kept drawing power, overloading the wire, and burnt out. He came by to my gate and asked if I turned out to the water. And I said, "Oh, yeah, my tank had a new leak on the pipe, and I turned it off until the next day until the plumber came by to fix the issue." You guys, the look on his face, he kept a straight one, but I just know he was holding back. He said, "Oh, okay," and went back inside. Not sure if he knows I know, but I don't care because he can't do anything. So I'm getting a plumber next week to correct my plumbing and remove any pipes that leave my property. I'm so glad I got rid of my water issue and this neighbor who was really a pain in my butt, simply by flicking a tap off. Two birds with one stone, I'd say. This happened in the early 2010s before advancement of technology in video editing and content creation. I was hired as a content creator for a university that wanted to leverage YouTube to kickstart their branding campaign. The pay was low, about 2200 US dollars, and in those days there weren't many video content creators around, and the process usually took a long time from start to finish. I was hired, and on my second day, my manager presented my KPI of 85 to 3 to 10 minute videos in 52 weeks. which was impossible for a one-man team in those days. This meant that I had to do the scripting, producing, casting talents, shooting videos, composing music, and editing, because they were too cheap to pay for a royalty music-free subscription even. All of which I had to use my own equipment and software for because their computers and cameras were so old they couldn't handle the strain of doing things in 720p, much less 1080p. I tried to let my manager know, but she just smiled encouragingly, telling me to give it a try, assuring me that if the videos were good, the quantity would not be what she focused on. Hearing this, I tried to give it a try. My manager treated me well in the first month. However, one day she found out I was a smoker and her attitude changed overnight. A colleague had actually done a facepalm when I told her about it, and she let me know that the managers hated smokers and often advocated for them to get fired. She started nitpicking at me on everything from smelling like cigarette smoke after my breaks, coming in 5 to 10 minutes late, despite doing more than 4 hours of overtime daily, not being able to take contactable during breaks, and the list goes on. But I soldiered on because I wanted to do my best and work well. 5 months in, I was called into the director's office where I saw my manager putting on her best, displeased but gleeful face, and I felt my stomach drop. The director said she was disappointed because she heard I was falling behind on my work, and it was already halfway through the year, and I had only completed 30 out of my 85 videos. I explained that I was working my butt off on these videos. I literally worked 6 days out of the week, over 60 hours, just to do what needed to be done, and that being a one-man army made things impossible. And also the fact that the videos I had put up grossed the highest views on their YouTube page. I also recounted how my manager said she was looking for quality videos over quantity. The director dismissed this and stated that the KPI of simply 85 videos in a year was fair. And since it was almost half a year in, with my numbers being less than half, she felt it prudent to cut the cord early. I asked how they would even meet a KPI if they were to fire me, and now my manager snorted, saying, "We'll find a professional production house to finish your work." The director had given her an odd look, but nodded in her support nonetheless, telling me, "You don't need to worry. Manager will get the job done." That was when a light bulb went off in my head. Seeing as I was a content professional in the office, one of my jobs was to keep a database of production houses to use in the event we needed to do a shoot that required more resources. I was sure that they would be using the production houses in my database as my manager had no production contacts in the production industry. So I changed all the contact numbers and messed up all the emails except for one. The one, I had a friend working as a junior director, not an assistant director, but a director assigned to smaller video projects. I gave him a call and told him my plan. And sure enough, within 2 days, they were called to come in and pitch. I told him that I had a plan that was a win-win for us. It would instantly help him and put him on the fast track to a director position by bringing in that much business to his production house, and it would also benefit me financially. I would teach him exactly how to pitch to win over the boss and the director in turn. His company would pay me a standard finder's fee of 15%. He agreed and instantly and immediately put me on the line with his general manager upon realizing this was about to be 6 months of work for a high six-digit payout, and he instantly agreed and drew up a contract. As it turns out, after I gave them a metaphorical step-by-step playbook, they were the perfect fit, somehow understanding the needs and style of the university, as well as the sort of themes the university wanted to feature. The director and my former boss were amazed that my friend's production house was so familiar with their content that they signed them up on the spot. Now, even back then, using a production house was not cheap. Each video that they produced could easily cost double to triple my monthly salary, given that they had specialized people for each function. But this meant that they could complete a video every 2 to 3 days. So yes, they produced 50 videos in the span of 4 months and for over 100 months worth of my salary. And I collected back a healthy 15%, which was about 15 months of my salary. This allowed me to put the money aside for a holiday and the rest to further my studies with a respected film school overseas. I thought my plan ended here, and I had gotten back at my former bosses, but to my surprise, I received a call from my colleague while holidaying in Bali one day. This was the same colleague who had facepalmed when I told her my manager had found out I was a smoker. She told me that my former manager had been fired and the director had been given a massive blasting by the chancellor of the university. The content created project for which I was hired for was only given a budget equating to about a year and a half of my salary, and they had exceeded that budget by over 10 times. My former manager was so desperate to ensure that her content creation project could be completed that she had thrown caution to the wind, paying anything to get the job done so she could show my director that she completed the project, and had approved the massive spend without getting consent from the director. So that's how I got my friend a super fast promotion to full director at his production house and a year of pay after unfairly getting fired from my job. Haha, sucks to suck. Wanted to say thank you everyone for watching this and for listening to all these confessions. I really enjoyed making these videos. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate. This is my final look. I'm just gonna wrap up my makeup, and again, thank you for watching. This is Recording Rissa, and I'm out.